everyone. Today I have with me author William Schiele, and William wrote the book Tears of the Assassin, and I'm so happy to talk to you about this book today, and I will call you Bill.
Great. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. So I got an email from you, and you asked me to read the book, and I was thrilled because I think you're one of the first people that has asked me to read their book. Okay. I've been asked to read second books or third books, but you're the first one that's come to me and said, will you please read my book? And so I ordered it right away from Amazon, and I got it, and I was like, wow, this is a book. Okay. This is a 400-page book. But
is this a book or a brick?
Oh, my goodness. So anyway, so I read it, and I was like, wow, because I knew that you were self-published. And, because I've read that, and I was like, wow, this is an incredible book. And I can see why you would self-publish it if you didn't want to go through the publishing world to get it out there. But I could not, if I wouldn't have seen it in the beginning of the book, there's no way I'd be able to tell. This story is amazing. And go ahead. I'll let you talk now.
Well, I thank you very much for that introduction, and I'm so glad you took the chance and read the book, because I think it is about getting people's opinions and having them take an opportunity to understand and see the story. It is a thriller novel, so maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but I think a lot of people like thrillers, and they like the risk that the protagonist is facing. They like the consequences of action. They like the circumstances which kind of often force a protagonist to take drastic actions, and sort of see that. It's kind of metaphorical for the kind of challenges a lot of people face in their lives. They see this kind of a character, facing probably far more dangerous things than most of us ever will, but seeing that fortitude that the character portrays, I think, is really what grabs people's emotions and pulls them into a story like this.
Yeah, and you had me very early on, because I have 6 children, and my second son, who is now 28, he's in the Army.
Okay.
So what happened is, he decided, my first son is a Marine, okay? So he went in fairly early after he graduated, not right away, but my second son, always trying to, one-up my first son, decides, I'm going to be in the Army. I'm going to go in the Army. He couldn't get in the Marine Corps because playing football, he broke both his shoulder blades and had plates put in his shoulders. So he had to go into the Army, but the Army recruiter tells him, okay, we'll get you in as soon as we can after graduation. It was the day after he graduated. So I went to his high school graduation, and the next morning I sent him to boot camp. Okay.
Wow.
So, it was a very, very traumatic time for me. And the Army, holds a place in my heart. And he got out of boot camp, and they sent him right over to Iraq. And, he was very young, and it was a very trying time in my life. But you had me right then, okay? So, you put him in a situation. My son was over there. He was the last Army unit to be deployed to Iraq. They stayed there a year finishing up everything over there. And but you sent this guy to Afghanistan, right? Yes.
We're correct. Yes. Yeah.
So, it's the same time frame. It's the same war. It's the same time period. So, right away I understood exactly where he was at mentally.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think I wanted to be able to, the protagonist for this story is someone who kind of struggles economically, and is sort of maybe on the, within the 99th percentile for sure. And so has some difficult choices to make in order to find his way and his place. And I think what thematically I've tried to convey is that he bumps up against power. Power either from the power of the dollar, the power within an army system, the power of officers, and finds himself each time coming up short on that kind of a conflict. And then, when he's out of the Army, he now finds himself with very limited opportunities, as can happen to a lot of people when they've completed a series of service. So he ends up perhaps not making the very best choices, but ends up kind of in the underworld as a place where he can find employment. And that's what eventually leads him into the sad but violent role of an assassin. And that's when the story kind of takes off in that direction, and kind of picks up when he enters a world that's, it's fictional, of course, but it's a world that most of us wouldn't know or see or probably spend much time in, and kind of gets pulled into that, where he's trying to avoid the law, where he's trying to avoid enemies that he's made, and where therefore he gets sucked deeper into obligations to people who are really kind of using him for their own purposes. And although he's kind of aware of that, it's not something he's acknowledging right up front.
Yes, and I was, looking for the title. I always look for the title in the book. And what I love about what you did with him, having raised sons, I have 4 of them, and seeing their that he had such an exterior, and then he had the interior, and that he wore his sleeves more on. I mean, he wore his emotions on his sleeves more than I anticipated at first, because he came across as somebody that I can handle this and I can handle this, kind of throw anything my way and I'm going to handle it. But then he has these moments that he just breaks down, and very inopportune moments that he breaks down.
Yeah.
But then you realize, it makes you connect to him. It made me connect to him way more than if you would have written him as somebody who it didn't bother, what they were doing. Like he could just do what, he could go and become an assassin and walk away from his family and walk away from any obligations. But that wasn't this guy, and I love that about him.
Yeah, I think I knew I was going to take someone who is essentially kind of a bad guy and make him my hero. I knew I had to personalize him, and I wanted to convey that the notion of people being able to be so hardened and so emotionless is really a contrivance that I think is played too much in fiction. And I hope other readers like yourself can kind of say, I can kind of feel where this guy is because he's feeling something. And I think that many of us might imagine, could I be driven to that kind of violence? Well, what if my family, but this guy is kind of in a state where he was acting out a violent role, but he's learning that there is a consequence for that. And he's finding that consequence is basically somehow having to, deal with the grief that comes about when you've acted in that way. So the emotions that he expresses and the conditions under which he expresses them were something that I contrived in order to give him a uniqueness. And I think that as much as we could look to other characters and stories, or maybe even someone we know who we think is, really tough, I think all humans, whether they display it or not, have within them the need to atone for their sadness, their grief, their loss, their failure, and maybe they hide that from a lot of people. And I think my character certainly tries to do that until he's in a situation where the conditions bring that emotion out of him, and then he can no longer control. Just as he can't sometimes control himself in a violent situation, he can't control himself when he's in a safe and warm and comforting place and just needs to expunge those feelings of guilt and grief.
Yes. And I would say now I read a lot. I can read almost any kind of book. And had it not been for the way that you wrote this, I would say that this was more of a book for men, because whenever you bring the military in, whenever you bring assassin in and you make it like a war type of a book, you look for a male audience, or you're thinking you're going to have more of a male audience. But I'm not sure what you've experienced with the selling of this book, but I recommend it. As a woman reading it, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I didn't feel like I was reading a book that was made more for men, where sometimes I'll read a book and be like, okay, this is geared towards male readers, but not this book. I did not feel that way at all. So I'm not sure if you had that experience, in selling it, what kind of feedback you've gotten from that. But I can tell you that I became very attached to him and this story, and we can't even get into the ending, and I wish we could. I really wish we could. But all I have to say is, is there another one? Is the first? Is there a sequel?
Yes, the sequel is underway. It's fully outlined. I'm partway through writing it, so I plan to follow this up and to continue the story, that's for sure. But I really appreciate what you're saying about the fact that it appeals to women as well as men. And I got to say that I'm probably, it's hard for me to know exactly what the gender split on the sales is, but I'd kind of say it's almost like 60-40 males versus females. So I think there are other women who have found, as you have, that it is definitely a rock'em sock'em, tough guy kind of story, but he has a human side, and that human side, and even the central drive of his reasons why he's doing what he's doing, have at the core, love for females, and there's also, I think, very strong female characters in the story that he has to come up against, and that he has to compare himself to and answer to in a way, I think, that makes the gender less important and the character of the individuals more important. And I think I did want to appeal to a broad audience. I didn't want it to be just for these people or just for those people, but I wanted it to appeal to all people, yet be able to still deliver that excitement, that tension, that suspense that I think thriller writers look for and thriller readers love to find, that they have found this book that, man, when I open up this book, it just sucks me in, and then I don't know what's going to happen next, and that kind of feeling, I think, it's a feeling I have had reading other authors, when you're just like, wow, I can't put this down, and wow, I just want to see what happens next. And I wanted very much to pull that experience into this book and have the audience feel like I'm almost like watching a movie on paper. This thing is so engaging.
No, absolutely. And the first thing that I wanted to tell you while I was reading it is that it reminded me of a James Patterson book immediately, like right from the get-go, which, I know everybody's like, right, because he seems like the unattainable, but I'm telling you, the way that you, I love short chapters. I'm a very short chapter person, because I think it draws you. The last paragraph of each chapter makes me want to keep, say one more. And the one thing that I've noticed, and I've always tried to define this, I really have, like as a reader, like what does that? What drives? Well, if you look at their next chapter, because I read the physical book, so, I'm looking at the pages, and it's like, okay, I've got 10 pages to the next chapter. All right, can I do laundry? Should I go do some laundry? But if you've got 5 pages, right, you're like, oh, I can read 5 pages and sit here. And I know that's a very, very elementary way of maybe putting it, but it is, I don't know, in this world, like, that is the way we think as readers, or before you go, or say when you're going to bed. I could read 5 more pages, but then you get to the end of those 5 pages, and you're like, well, I can read 5 more pages, and I can read 5 more, and before you know it, you're halfway through the book because you're always thinking you can do that, and you did that so well that I did read it in a very short period of time. Even though it is a 400-page book, I did find that I read those books faster when the chapters flow like that. And, I don't know if other people feel that way or if you've gotten that feedback from other people, but I know I enjoy that as a reader.
Well, I know I've had that experience as a reader as well. So I knew that would be something that I wanted to pull into the book. But first, let me thank you very much for comparing it to James Patterson. That's quite an elevation of my status. But I do think that the momentum, tension, and pace are all things that I keep in mind when I'm writing, and I definitely keep in mind as I'm editing. And I've discovered that writing is fun, and I love the name of your channel, Writing is Fun, but also editing is critical. And I would say, I wrote this in a certain amount of time, and it took me 3 to 4 times the amount of time to edit it. But I think in that editing process, I find myself saying, can I say this in less words? Can I say this in less words? Can I say this in less words? So I get it to the point where I can make the chapter short, and I can truncate an idea and have it just hang there so that it leads into the next chapter. And in today's busy environment, in today's, media-rich environment where people have so many media messages coming at them in our devices, in our pockets, in our hands, so much coming at you, to get someone to dedicate the time to enjoy the length of a story, the depth of a story is a very unique opportunity, and I feel very grateful that you and others are willing to do that with us. So when someone makes that investment, I definitely want to take full advantage of that opportunity and reward them with an experience that they're looking for, something that sucks me away from my normal life and my worries and my concerns and pulls me into someone else's life that's a lot worse than mine, but is very, very entertaining and compelling. So I appreciate that. And I guess my next book is probably going to have 150 chapters.
Well, and what I always wanted to, I homeschooled my children.
Wait a minute, homeschooled 6 children? You're amazing.
Well, I did it in let's not get too impressed. They're all different ages, and I did it in different, at different time periods, and some I did through high school, some I didn't. It just depended on what their needs were. But
wow.
I have been a reader my entire life, and I hated when people would say, oh, well, books are a thing of the past, and everybody's going to go to Kindle, and then reading eventually is going to be, that's just going to be something that people just don't do in this world anymore. And I was like, no way. I was teaching my children how to read. I am a reader. I like a physical book. Yes, I use a Kindle to travel just because one time I had to carry 20 books through an airport because they wouldn't let me have them in my bag. So yes, I invested in a Kindle, but I wanted, I do buy the physical book if I can. And I wanted to show that people are still buying books, and I wanted to be that book person and to get it out there and to promote new authors, because you guys are the ones that I'm like, this book should be when I walk into Barnes & Noble, I should be seeing this book. Okay, that's what I wanted to find people that's what I wanted to see, and that's what I wanted to promote. And when I find people like you, it makes me so happy. and I, because I will promote this book as much as I can, and I want other people to know that the self-publishing world is so, the books that are out there are just so awesome that it doesn't, just because you're with a big-time publisher does not automatically mean that it's a great book. There's all different ways now. There's hybrid, there's all kinds of things through Amazon. And I did see that you did this through Inkshares, and you're actually the second person I've interviewed that has used Inkshares. So I didn't understand it. When I interviewed the first guy and he brought it up, I didn't know about it ahead of time. And so I didn't go into that much detail with him about it. But I'd really like you to just give like a little bit of a description for people out there that don't know what Inkshares is.
Sure. I'm happy to do that. Inkshares was a critical and absolutely essential part of the success of the publishing of this book. Inkshares is a reader-selected, crowd-funded publisher. So I appreciate you describing it as self-published, and I'm understanding of that. But truly, Inkshares is the publisher, and what I had to do was, rather than get an agent and the agent sells it to a publishing house, Inkshares provides you with a platform on which you can use email messaging and social media messaging to draw potential readers to their web page, where the cover of the book is there, the synopsis of the book is there. Then you can post sample chapters. I had the first 8 chapters posted up there. And then Inkshares is a community of other writers and readers. And so people will go ahead and take a look at your book, read your synopsis, read some sample chapters, and if they like it, they put a little mini review up there. And so if enough people like it, they can pre-order it. And if you generate 250 pre-orders, then your book will be published. And so it's published by Inkshares through the same mechanisms that any other publisher uses. You get it edited, you get it copyrighted, you get it designed, you work with them on the cover, and they put the cover on there for you. And I had a fabulous artist, Reed McLaughlin, helping me with this cover, and we put that together, and Inkshares helped with the printing. So Inkshares was it was just a breath of fresh air in my publishing process, because they allowed me to tell the story the way I wanted to, with no suggesting changes, and they honored the pre-orders that I had generated. So when I hit the magic number 250, they went ahead and started the publishing process. And they are the ones who supply it to Amazon, to Barnes & Noble, to Books A Million, all the various places where it's available. So I encourage any young writer, any writer, not just young, but anyone who's looking to publish a book, to consider Inkshares. And you go to their website and it says right there, build your readership, sell pre-orders, we publish your book. So they are my partners in this by being my publisher. And I want to also just mention that in addition to the little plug I put for editing, how important editing a manuscript is, I have also found that as much as, my name is on this, I'm the author, I have collaborators who have helped me. From people in a writing group I work with, to my very good friend Patrick Johnson, who helped me with all sorts of conceptual and editing elements of the story, to my group of beta readers who read the manuscript in its early stages and gave me great feedback, to all the people who stepped up with Inkshares and pre-ordered it on faith alone to believe that I could produce this book. So as a writer, there are many people for me to be very grateful for, to have collaborated with.
That makes, now I understand it so much better, because the other author that I interviewed, I saw when he was on LinkedIn, and he put thank you for the 250 likes or whatever he had, whatever you said that you had to get, because then his book was getting published. I didn't even understand what that meant, but now I understand that. So
they're actual,
amazing. That's an amazing thing.
The 250 are pre-orders. These are people who saying, they say, okay, I'll pay $16, and if the book is published, then I've got a copy. And if the book is not published, then I get my 16. Well, they don't even take the money yet, but the money isn't charged until the book is actually published. But the people are saying, I will buy this and wait for it to be published. And
I'm really going to look into that. That is awesome. I'm really going to look into that, because that sounds like right up my alley.
Inkshares is growing too, because when I started, there were like 2,500 book projects. Now there's over 8,000. So a lot of people have stepped into it. But I'll tell you, not every book makes it. And I've seen a lot of books that their campaign ended without them reaching the numbers that they needed, and they can try again. They can go back and take all the feedback that they've gotten from people, and maybe reassess their story and come back again, because Inkshares charges the authors absolutely nothing on whatever, because Inkshares is going to make their money off of the books that are successful. I have not paid Inkshares one single penny.
Wow. And how often is that? Because if you do, as an author, like, instead of investing a whole into a whole book, if you already get that feedback from people that say, rework this or redo this part or and then bring it back, and I don't know, that sounds pretty amazing to me. I mean, I think that sounds like the new world of publishing books,
It kind of is, because you could even they even have a draft mode where you put it up as a draft, and you're not even asking people to pre-order, but you can ask people, hey, read my draft here and see what you think. And it's a big enough community that there will be writers who are maybe trying to do the same sort of thing, and they'll say, okay, I'll read your draft, please read my draft. And you've found yourself some beta readers. And invariably, there are going to be people who at least are writing. They're writing something. And if you like what they're writing, well, then you're more likely to accept their criticism. So it's really making a strong community. And I'm very grateful for both Inkshares and all the friends and collaborators who helped me with this process.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad you straightened that out for me, because I really didn't know, and it's a new thing, and, it's great. We can get it out there for other authors to know about. And because I was going to tell you that your cover is amazing, okay? It really is, because at first glance, you don't see the shot, and then I'll post it so people can see the cover, and then you look closer and you're like, oh wow, this is really, and it really stands out. It really does. It's an amazing book, and the artist who helped me with that is just a tremendous artist, Reed McLaughlin. You have to Google him. He's a painter. He's a sculptor. He's an outdoorsman. He just did tremendous work for me on this, and really came up with that conceptual thing. The sort of rain running down the window pane. That's it's crazy. It's amazing, and I just want to thank you so much for allowing me to read it, and bringing it to my attention so that I can get it out there for you. And I'm really happy about that. Now that I know about that, I'm going to definitely go on there and check it out for everybody. So
I encourage you to do so. I've been very fortunate. I've had some opportunities to do some book signings at Barnes and Nobles, and I'll tell you, it's really interesting, because then you really get to meet potential readers, And you're there in the store, and you got your little sign, you got your pile of books there, but they come up and I ask them, well, do you like thrillers? And they say, oh yeah, I love Vince Flynn, I love Brad Thor. Okay, well this is within that genre. And then we're talking about other books that they've read and characters that they really liked and the sort of elements of the story that they hope for. And it's awesome when you can just say, yeah, this has got that. And when someone else comes up and they're like, well, I don't know, I don't read these very often, but, tell me about it, then you can tell them about the difficulties that he has with what he's doing, the reluctance that he has forced through, and to sort of tell them about the bad guy and what his sort of plans are. And it's interesting how some people will gravitate towards one aspect of the story, and other people are drawn by some other aspect of the story. And so I really found those book signing events very, very interesting to get to know your readership. And that was one of the things that, a lot of books I've read on this process, and even Inkshares was like, well, who is your audience? And you're like, how do I know? This is the first one.
Right, and that's why I thought I'd tell you, how I felt about it as a woman, because I find that with authors, they don't know, I don't know who's reading my books or who this is more geared to, but I know, and you had talked about before about the strong female characters. Yes, those are, that was another thing that helped me really enjoy it, was how he interacted with women and different women. And, and children and, and his mom and, just seeing how he handled the women in his life really did round out his character.
Yeah. And I think that what I wanted to convey is that I think the role that women play in men's lives, at least in a lot of thriller novels, is usually kind of contrived, I feel. And doesn't really reflect, the importance of the reality of women in men's lives. And so I wanted it to not come across as so testosterone driven that you forget that it's estrogen that really raises a lot of men. And that the influence of that doesn't make him any less of a strong guy, any less of a tough guy. In fact, it gives him a little more grounding as to why and for what he's doing this for, rather than trying to prove himself as some sort of a caricature of machoism. He's actually looking to fulfill and atone for the things that he's done, and the hope that he has to be able to help his mom and to help some of the other women that he encounters along the way. So I think what I hope that it creates is that for all readers, they see that there's reasons for what he's doing. And although some of his choices aren't the greatest, it's still, there's a purpose to it that will hold up the suspense of disbelief that you have invested into this story long enough for you to be taken by the action, taken by the tension, taken by the pace of the story, to just really enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I learned so much from you. This has been very educational on my part, so I really do appreciate that, and I cannot wait to read the next one. I mean, let me know, and we will get it out there and get it known, and we can chat again about it, because I can't wait to see what happens to this guy.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. I sure appreciate your time and your listeners' time. And I'm writing the sequel as fast as I can and hope to have it out very, very soon.
Awesome. Well, you just let us know, and, I'll post it wherever, and, all my social media. And for everybody, at the end of this video, at the bottom of this video, I will have all the links for his Amazon page and Facebook and whatever thing you're whatever else you have going.
We'll put the Inkshares link too. They can go to my Inkshares webpage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we will get Inkshares up there, and I just highly suggest if you love thrillers, you will love this book. So thank you so much, Bill.
Okay, you're very, very welcome.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.